The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of KSMQ Public Service Media Incorporated or its assigns.
Funding for this program is provided in part by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota.
Arrival Finding Home is brought to you in part by Donnelly Law Office, providing legal services in matters of immigration law, divorce and family law, and criminal defense since 2002. Donnelly Law Office is a proud sponsor of Arrival Finding Home.
What we knew 20, 30 years ago is not what Minnesota looks like now.
There's so many things in the news about immigration today, but has it really changed?
The state of Minnesota resettles about 2,000 refugees per year.
It was okay to go get dirty. It's okay not to have fancy little hands. It's okay to be stronger than your boyfriend.
In order to find a job here, they need to prepare their English.
Immigration has always been incredibly important to Minnesota's settlement and economy and culture.
Just don't need to be afraid of us, so we are a very peaceful person.
I think there are many, many reasons that people came to Minnesota. One of the main ones was famine. Another one was war. Another one was maybe lack of land. Others wanted to strike out to a new adventure and be able to follow a trade that maybe they felt in their homeland they weren't able to do. They brought many customs to our country that were used in the early times, such as township halls, maybe religious beliefs, being able to follow their own beliefs and not be ridiculed by someone else.
The 1850s would be before the Homestead Act, so they would be buying land at a very reasonable price, probably, that had recently been alienated from the Dakota or Ojibwe people in the state by the United States government. And that's how they would do it. There weren't railroads yet either, so it's not like they were buying land from the railroad. They were pretty much buying land from the United States government directly. I think the opening of land in Minnesota coincided with a large surge of emigration from Germany, which wasn't Germany at the time. It was a lot of smaller states. If they weren't going to be urban workers or skilled workers like jewelers and so on, they wanted land. And Minnesota was the place where land was open, and that's where they came and continued to come for many, many decades after that. This is Minnesota territory that these folks were coming into, and I think that what happened in many communities was that people who'd been here a little bit longer had a little bit more English, and they dealt with the English speakers who needed to be dealt with for one reason or another, but another bonus of ethnic rural settlement was that most of the people that you encountered every day who had a store in your local town or a place that you could bring your crops or your milk, depending on what kind of farming you were doing, many of them were German speakers, so there wasn't so much pressure for everyone to learn to speak English immediately.
I became involved with the Freeborn County Historical Society through a project that was done in 1988, and it was called our Freeborn County Heritage Book. Okay. It was sort of had two components. It had a history of the county, and then it had a genealogy section or part about the people in Freeborn County. When I look at the county, we have a map that sort of shows where people settled, and it's no different. We're mostly Norwegians. We're the biggest part of our settlement, but we had Dutch in Hollandale. We had, at a later date, we had the Mexicans that came up as migrant workers that also settled in those areas around Hollandale and up into Blooming Prairie, a little bit outside our county, but so there were settlements there for those people. Down in Myrtle, we had the Bohemians, and then we have Czechs, and we have Germans, and we have French. You know, we have a little bit of everything. But how did they settle? They settled near people that spoke the same language, that had the same customs, that maybe had the same religion. You know, there are lots of different religions here too, a lot of Lutherans, but, you know, there are Catholics and there are you know, Episcopal and Methodist and so forth. And so those customs and beliefs came with them. And so they were able to share them and feel comfortable in their settings by being close to people that came from the same place as they did.
Germans were welcomed in the new areas of the Midwest for their economic contributions, but their religious and cultural values, particularly their fondness for beer and public Sunday socializing, often antagonized reform-minded Americans. So the early 1850s in particular were years of significant anti-immigrant agitation. And that anti-immigrant agitation at that point in time, I think, was aimed mostly at the Germans. People kept coming from Germany as well as from Southern and Eastern Europe after 1900, up until the time of World War I and immediately afterwards when laws were passed limiting immigration. So I think that the Minnesota government was aware that there were many people who had become citizens who weren't totally knowledgeable in English yet, and so they thought it would be appropriate to print these instructions in just all kinds of languages of people they knew who were living in Minnesota.
In 1896, we in Minnesota had instructions for our elections in 9 different languages: English, German, French, Italian, Polish, Swedish, Finnish, Czech, and Norwegian.
So it really is amazing to take a look at these all and think how many people speaking how many languages were living in Minnesota at that point. And voting, hopefully.
My dad didn't know much about his family, although my grandfather, my great-grandfather, and my great-great-grandfather from his side are all buried in that cemetery. He didn't know much about what happened to them or what their lives were like, other than they were carpenters. Mom had a very, very close family, and most of our get-togethers as a young family were to go to my mom's brothers and sisters and visit. You know, we would play with our cousins, and my mom and dad would play cards, and that was sort of our vacations and our days away from home, you know. And so I had gone to visit one of her aunts and uncles, and they told me the story of her family coming over from Germany. And the story was that when they arrived in America in June of 1850, the youngest child, who was 2.5 years old, was very ill, and the authorities would not let them travel on to their destination, which was Iowa, was their original destination. After a couple of weeks of being detained, they were given permission to leave their child in the care of a priest and travel on to their destination, get their homes set up, and then the father was to come back after the baby. So they started off, and they got as far as Cincinnati, Ohio, and they bought a farm and got settled, and then the father went back sometime later. We think about 2 months had passed for him to travel back to New York to get Gerhard. And when he arrived, there was no baby. There was no Gerhard. There was no priest that they had left him in the care of. And all they were told was that the priest had gotten called away, they thought, to either England or Australia, and that he had taken the child with him.
Mexicans and Mexican Americans had been coming to Minnesota really since the very early 20th century to help with crops, to pick crops and do migrant labor in the fields. And starting in the 1920s, some of them started settling out, as it was called, in St. Paul, and some of them got jobs in the wintertime at the meatpacking plants in South St. Paul, and figured out ways that they didn't have to travel back and forth to either Texas or Mexico or wherever else they may have been living the rest of the year. And so that was kind of a beginning of a story, and then more people came in the 1930s and 40s. There was a Bracero program in the 1940s to bring workers in, but the assumption was that they were going to ship them back at the end of whatever time they were here for, and the program was to encourage better food production during the war. So there are many 50s era photos that will also tell you more about the conditions in the 1950s.
I was born in Mexico, came to the United States when I was 5. As a 5-year-old child, at that time, you would probably be more laying in the cars, staying in the cars, sleeping under the cars, maybe tagging along Dad, at the fields. Not necessarily had to perform a lot of work. You would just have to be staying safe and out of trouble. And so as a 12-year-old, things changed. At 12-year-olds, you were already having responsibilities. You no longer were that child sleeping in the car late or staying, out of trouble. You were actually expected to work the full hours. If we got there at 4:35 in the morning, you worked until the sun went down. Even though you were 12 years old, you had to perform just like the adults. And as a 18, 19-year-old, you were expected to earn your wages and get up and help with your lunches and come home and do your laundry, put your stuff ready, get yourself ready for the next day. And that was our summers, from the end of April to October. Those were our daily routines as we were growing up as a migrant worker. Overall, when I talk about being a migrant worker and working in the fields, I honestly believe that it was a wonderful thing that my father taught us to work hard, and he taught us that it was okay to go get dirty. It's okay not to have fancy little hands. It's okay to be stronger than your boyfriend. As a young girl, we learned how to drive a tractor, how to plant a field, how to harvest a field, how to go to market and sell your stuff, because my dad had land, and so we would go to the warehouses to sell our produce. We also had animals, so we go to the auction and sell our animals. I go with my dad into the auction and sell their stuff. My dad had 7 girls and 2 boys. And our 7 girls were treated just like the boys. When my father would go to ranchers say, you know what, we believe that this 300 acres, we can harvest it. Him and his 6 girls. And at first the ranchers were like, you know, no. And here they have my uncle, had brother, had all his sons bidding in the same. And for him to say, no, just give us a chance. My girls can do it. And it took a couple of years to you know, get us in there. And after that, that was not an issue. Working hard doesn't hurt anybody. It's you know, it's good. It's good for us. It's good for the soul, you know. And I don't know. I think it helps me to understand the people that I work with, simply because I've been there and I know how desperate they are to have a home. Even though I have to say that I was a very lucky young girl. By the time when I came here, when I was 5 years old, my father had already bought a house. And we never rented other than the times that we were migrant workers. We always had a home. My father was make sure that when he came to America, he was not going to be a burden to the government. He did not want us to have welfare. He did not want any handouts for the welfare. So he always said, we didn't come here so the government take care of us. We have to take care of ourselves. You know, they had such pride, and I think that I have to give my dad credit for that he just installed this, that nothing is free in this world. Nothing's free, you have to work for it. And I think that that's important. It's important to hand that down to our kids too.
The number of refugees that come to Minnesota are determined by the priorities that are established by the U.S. State Department and the President of the United States.
So we are committed to ensuring a peaceful, stable, and prosperous Southeast Asia.
Since the early 80s, our state has had a robust refugee resettlement program. So over the years, the state has been resettling different groups of people, starting from the people from Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. And now to the current program, the state is resettling refugees from about 11 countries. Many refugees from Myanmar or Burma, refugees from Somalia, refugees from Bhutan, refugees from Ethiopia, and refugees from Congo.
I come from, a war-torn country. Ever since I was young, we were moving from one city to another, just running away, finding a safe place to be. I vividly remember being under a bed and some people shooting over our beds in the hotel room. My dad was in the army of South Sudan, and he was like in a rebel group. Does that make sense? So, because then the country was a civil war that was going on in South Sudan. So he was on the SPLA or the SPLM, the movement side, fighting for the rights of the Southern Sudanese. I remember we ran from one city or state to the other, and when we got there, it was at night. It was like around 4 or 5 in the evening, and it was getting dark. And then my mom's like, they were saying, well, you can't stay here because the next morning they might, because this is where the army were. And then the next morning, as soon as the other side find out, they'll come shoot up the place. So my mom said, I'm not going to sleep here. I need to find a way to get to the next city where my kids are safe. At that time, I think my mom found a driver. So she paid the driver to take us from one location to the other. But then the roads are really bad, of course, in South Sudan, and you can't travel at night, but we had no choice. So in the process, we got in a really bad car accident where the car The truck, it was a truck, an army truck we were driving, and because my mom had some status, because my dad is a general, so he was like, yeah, he was more than willing to help us. So we got in the truck. Everybody got in the truck. We sat in the inside, but some people just were sitting on the, have you seen the pickup truck? They're just sitting on the floor of the pickup truck. So he was driving at night, and the car fell off the mountain, is what I remember, just rolling down a mountain, and yeah, 2 people died. I just remember the scene being, it was dark and people crying and screaming all over the place, and then there's blood. My sister was just bleeding, we don't know where the blood was coming from. We don't know if it was her head, or we don't know where the blood was coming from. But it was just a very chaotic scene of just people crying and screaming, and just, you don't know who was hurt and who was not. But it was just my sister was the only one that got her eye cut, and now she has a scar from it. Ever since I was born, that's just been the life until I came to the U.S. My dad wanted to go back, and fight. But my mom is like, no, I'm not going back to South Sudan. It's not safe. I need a safe place, not here. She got a visa. She got like a ticket, a lottery ticket or something to come to the U.S. So she didn't, and then when she got that, she went to my dad and said, here is a ticket that I can go to the United States with the kids. I can put your name on the list if you're willing to come, with us. It's your choice. Either you're gonna go with your kids or you're gonna go to back to war. And she's like, if you go back to war, you're not gonna make it back alive. And then 2 weeks before we could leave, they found out that my mom was pregnant. So my dad, I think it was a really hard decision for him, but he made the right decision, and he was like, okay, I'm gonna go with my kids, and we all came to the United States. I just thought it was a different country, just like all the other countries I've been to. But I didn't think about, they said, oh, you're gonna walk into the US. I think one of my cousins said, they have faucets made out of juice. And I was like, what? It's like, yeah, you just turn on the faucet and the juice come out of it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can drink juice all I want. But that was the only thought I had. But I didn't really think, I just thought it was like a place where I can do anything. I guess that's what they made it seem like. It's like this is like the best place you can go. If you can go anywhere in the world, United States is the best place. And I was like, oh, okay. What does that look like? I wasn't sure, but I was excited to come see, I guess. Well, my parents were fine with 6 kids at that time. And they were all under 10, basically. All 6 children under 10 years old. So I spoke my first language, which is Dinka, Arabic, and then Swahili. The first place we landed was New York. And then from New York, we went to Arlington, Virginia. And that's where we stayed until 2000, and we moved to Minnesota. I came here, walked into Mayo High School, and then my first class was English. And I remember walking in, and all I see is like white faces. I was just in shock. I couldn't believe it. I'd never seen that. I came from a diverse everything to just very white America in Minnesota. So it was a culture shock for me. It snowed on my first day of school. It's funny because it doesn't really snow that much in Virginia, but on my first day of school, I remember walking out and you see all this white stuff coming from the sky, and I was like, what is this? I thought some house was burning because it looked like ashes at first, and then when it touched my hands, it was like it turned into water, and I was like, oh, what is this stuff? I didn't know about snow. And then I asked my dad, I was like, Dad, what is this? He's like, oh, it's snow. It's called snow here. And I was like, what is snow? And he had to explain it to me and stuff like that. So, yeah.
What we knew 20, 30 years ago is not what Minnesota looks like now. This will be our 9th year of having all-day, everyday kindergarten. And in the state of Minnesota, this is one of the largest kindergarten centers. So again, all kindergartners from the entire community come to this one school for a year, and then they disperse out into their neighborhood elementary schools for first grade. This is the entry point to their educational career, regardless of backgrounds that they've come from. We really are able to provide some very enriching experiences to cultivate language, to learn turn-taking, to learn how to cooperatively play with each other. We expose them to the science, to reading, to mathematics. We also have what we call play centers, which is an opportunity for kids to have daily exposure to playing with each other, to just creating things and being very inquiry-based, asking a lot of questions about things. We also have gym, and of course lunch is always a top priority for every 5- and 6-year-old that we see. At this level, it's very non-threatening. We make that this is a very friendly and welcoming environment for all. So you will see us out on the playground, you'll see us on the sidewalks at the bus, you'll see me at soccer games in the summer. We really want to engage our parents too, because at this level, if we can capture parents as well and get them engaged in their learning, their child's learning, and how they can help and support them, it just helps as they grow and continue to get older. Whether it's you want to be a scientist, a teacher, you want to be a principal, whatever you want to do, we want to help you grow and develop, and we want to also recognize that you have a diverse skill set and gifts that you're bringing that day too. So it's not we're giving you all this stuff, but what else can we get from learning with you too? And that's been a really neat piece at this level too, is just having them use a swing set for the first time, having them see electricity, having them see a toilet that just flushes on its own. I mean, just that excitement that just, it's just a gift as an adult too, to just recognize those small little things and how that really helps to keep that positive environment about learning and an environment of a school that they feel safe and comfortable, and continuing to grow and cultivate those gifts. When I started at the high school 8 years ago, we hadn't heard of the Karen population. That was something very new to us. And the Sudanese population was very small at that time. You know, within the last 5 years, that's been something that we've worked to really understand with our success coaches, and to give us as administrators and educators that background knowledge as to what was the educational experiences of our families coming from Kenya, from Ethiopia, from Sudan. What knowledge base did they have? What was the value of education? And learning for a lot of us that it wasn't a right, it was a privilege, it was a gift, and a lot of our families that coming in didn't get that gift. And so coming to a community such as Austin, where everyone receives it, has been just a shift for parents as well too.
I am from Burma. I was born in the southern part of Burma, Karen state. The town that I was born in Chai, but I grew up in my mother's small town, very small village, maybe about 500 people. There is not a lot of people have a chance to go to school. And most of the people, they are farming or plant rice. I want to be success in something, but I didn't know what, because over there we do not have a lot of opportunity where we finish our school, especially in the border area, Thai-Burma border. So we have the medical training that opened by Dr. Cynthia. She was well known that time around the border area. So I went to her clinic, and I want to learn to go to study the medical, the training that she offers. So I worked there for about 4 years, and then I thought that I get a lot of experience from that because I have a lot of knowledge. So I can do like doing people with like a prenatal care, delivery, and then treatment, diagnose, and immunization for a child. All the things that we need to do because we do not have the doctor around that area. So that's why we just had to do whatever we can. So I feel like I miss Thailand, and I miss Bangkok, you know, where you are on the plane. So you look back on the ground, so you know you have to say bye-bye to the, you know, the country that you live. So it's kind of sad sometimes. You left behind your family, your community, and the area, you know, the town, the place that you used to live. So now you had to leave behind you and then just go.
To come permanently to make United States your permanent home, there's 5 ways. The first way, which is probably 2/3 of all of our immigrants, come through family. So they have a spouse or a parent or a child who's a U.S. citizen or permanent who files a petition for them. That's the bulk of our immigration. That's not an easy process. Sometimes families, because of, well, it's hard to explain, but sometimes the families have to be separated for multiple years before they're finally allowed to be together. So the family category involves enormous waits, from as long as 12 months to, in some cases, 20 years, waiting for your family to come. So, and then if you're from particular countries, those waits are even longer. So that's our biggest way. And then we have a way to come through the humanitarian routes like asylum, or if you've been a victim of a crime or victim of domestic abuse. Then we have a way through employment, which is a large area in my practice, where an employer wants someone with specific skill set, and then they prove no one else can do that job. And then the employer gets to petition for that person. So that's a real technical way to come. Maybe, I don't know, 15–20% of our immigrants come through employment. The hard part about those kind of cases is that, again, we have these enormous backlogs. And so, for instance, a bachelor degreed Indian computer scientist might have to wait 10 years before he or she gets a green card. Huge backlogs. And we don't have enough of those visas. So we have a big need for the talent in the United States, but we don't have enough visas available according to our quota system. And then there's two The remaining two are much smaller. One is the green card lottery. And they allow 55,000 people a year to immigrate through the lottery. And then there's something called employment creation. If you have a lot of money and you want to start a business and hire 10 U.S. workers, you can get conditional green card. So that's an attractive way if you're very wealthy and you really are, you're an entrepreneur type. Yeah, I haven't had one of those yet. So the green card lottery, my understanding is that Senator Ted Kennedy, who was a big advocate of immigration, started the lottery back in about 1990. And the way it works is that every year there's a month-long registration period for the lottery. And the government announces who is qualified to register. So if you come from a country where we have high numbers already, such as Canada, Mexico, you're not allowed to be in the lottery. So it comes from countries where we have relatively low numbers of immigrants coming from. And then you have to have, I believe it's completed college or 2 years work history and not criminal record and things like that. And now it's all online. You just fill out a little bio form and send it in. And apparently they have ways of tracking to make sure you only send in one. And about 100,000 people win every year. They get a number, and then they start ticking away on the number. And when they get to 55,000 of those numbers being used with good cases, everyone else is out.
And then 2 weeks before we could leave, they found out that my mom was pregnant. She was only 2 weeks pregnant. They're like, no, you're gonna have to wait until you deliver before you travel to the US. So we had to wait almost a whole year before we can travel. So right away after my mom gave birth to my brother, within a week we were able to travel.
So it happens every fiscal year with the government, which starts October 1st. And they process all those cases, and it is a golden ticket. A certain number of people get it. In 20 years, I've had 5 clients get the lottery.
The weather is very hot. Have a lot of islands surrounded by the water. Most of the Burmese people are Buddhists. They respect their tradition. They teach their children how to respect the elderly people. We live in the same house, or the family live together. We do not have a lot of nursing homes. Most of the children are taking care of their parents when their parents are older. I work as a nurse for 26 years for the government in my country. Because of my father is sick, I quit my job. After I won the lottery, I feel very happy. And then I didn't expect to win the lottery. I went to see one of my daughters and show her about the first paper. She said that don't be so excited yet. So you had to wait until the second letter comes, so in order to be sure. Later on, I got a lot of forms that need to be filled out. And we need to look in a typing machine, and then we need to type the form and then send back to US. I bought the ticket, and then I came with my friend's sister to US. The next thing that I had to worry about is I had to find for the place to go and then live. I didn't know anybody here. First, I came to California, San Jose. I lived in San Jose for 1 month. I know some people who from Burma who live in Alaska, so that's why I continued to Alaska. I lived in Anchorage for 2 months. I didn't do very well in Anchorage. Here I'm alone by myself. In a few years, when my family are here, maybe 2-3 years, when my family are here, I will be a little bit better. I will feel a little bit better. In Burma, if we do not have a job, our family can support us. But in America, we need to have a job. I am very interested in becoming a nurse. This is a successful country, and I want to live in a successful country.
In terms of bringing in refugees, actually, Minnesota is not the biggest refugee resettlement site. On an annual basis, the president sets as a target a ceiling of about 70,000 refugees. Okay, Minnesota on an annual basis, and more recently, only resettles about 2,000 refugees per year. Having said that, because of our robust resettlement program, there are many refugees from other states who opt or voluntarily come to Minnesota to join their friends and their families. Refugees resettle here because the state of Minnesota participates in the U.S. Resettlement Agency or Admissions Program, USRAP. And through this program, which is operated by the U.S. State Department and the Department of Health and Human Services, through this program, several national private agencies work with the State Department to, as it were, bid or request for a number of refugees all across the nation. There are probably 340 sites across the nation. And on a given year, we probably resettle about 2,000 refugees through 6 agencies, private agencies that are located in the Twin Cities, St. Cloud and Rochester.
A citizen of the United States of America.
One of the more important things that we as Minnesotans can do as citizens and to welcome refugees is probably to correct some of the most common misconceptions about refugees. I hear a lot from people that refugees do not want to learn and speak English. That's one common perception or misconception. Another one is that refugees don't pay taxes. And then the third common misconception is that the refugees do not have the correct documentation of their status in the United States. I think once we continue to correct the misconceptions and begin to welcome refugees as our new neighbors and as our new co-workers, I think everyone benefits.
A lot of people from my country who come here, they work here, and then they do not speak the language, they do not understand the language. So I am trying to help them, to get understand about the situation.
My name is Miatu. I came from Burma. I won the DV lottery and came to US in 2011. I came here for the US for the America is a developing country, and I continued my educations in here.
They need to be prepared. Everything trying to be ready before they come here. After they arrive here, if they start from here, they will not be very good. In order to find a job here, they need to prepare their English.
A renter is like a flower in a pot. They take that pot with them wherever they go, because that flower, they love that flower pot, but they don't plant it because they don't want it to leave it when they move. But for them, when they buy a house, it's like planting that plant that they've been carrying all these years into the ground, and that plant starts now to build those roots in the ground and to grow beautiful. And that's the same thing that happens to us as homeowners. We now become part of this community. I had this idea that the Hispanic people were not buying because they didn't have a Mexican or Spanish-speaking realtor. So that was I'm going to be a realtor, I'm going to help everybody, and we're going to be able to do this. So I quickly learned that it wasn't because they didn't want to buy a home. It was that they didn't have any loan officers that would be willing to work with them. When I started doing lending, there was a connection. People were now able to buy houses or understand the process of buying houses simply because we were there to explain it to them in a more tailored way where they could understand it. You took out all the big words and explained the importance of homeownership and how to obtain that dream of homeownership.
We are going to run through your numbers for the purchase of your home.
Okay.
And then we'll sign
within yourself. You just have to have that. I always tell my my little sisters, you just have to have a goal. You have to have a goal. What's your goal? What do you want to accomplish?
So we have a purchase price of $180.
And then once you have that goal, you got to find out ways on how to get to that goal. And if something is not going to get you there, then there's no point of you doing it.
This is just breaking down your closing costs.
There's a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of help. That's what I find. There's a lot of help out there. It's that ask and you'll receive. If you ask, you'll actually get it. I mean, there are some barriers that you have to overcome, but there is still a way that you can get there. And then I had a lot of support, from my family, and that's major for you to just have somebody tell you, yeah, you can do it, or yes, go for it. It's very important. Thank you. I just bought a home. I can't believe it. My first home. So it's what they call a multi-generational home, because I'm buying a house not for myself but also for my family. So my mom and my brothers and my sisters are going to be moving in, so it means a lot, especially to my mom. She's going to be happy and relieved that she has a place to call home instead of renting. But she doesn't know I actually did it, so it's going to be a surprise.
I have been looking for Gerhard for 48 years. I started my research when I was just a teenager because I had such a close relationship with my dad and learning about his family before he passed away, and he died just before my 15th birthday. And when one of my mother's uncles, so my great uncle, told me the story about Gerhard, I just knew that I had to find him. Somehow there had to be something out there that would give us a clue as to what happened to him or what his life was like after being separated from his family. I have found him at last. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going down to meet the family. They're having a family reunion the first weekend in June, so my husband and I are going to go down and meet our new family.
Sharon, how are you?
I just can't imagine how devastated this couple, you know, my great-great-great-grandparents felt when they knew they had lost that child and not knowing how to go about trying to find him. At that point, you know, the communications was so limited. And I think in today's world, hopefully, these people that are becoming separated for one reason and another will someday be able to make that connection again. And I guess my advice to them is don't ever give up. Just continue to believe and, you know, don't ever give up on searching. Just be persistent. They're out there somewhere. And what a wonderful thing to happen that after 164 years we're going to be able to reunite our family. It's just heartwarming.
Well, I just think that immigration has always been incredibly important to Minnesota's settlement and economy and culture. And an amazing number of immigrants start restaurants, and restaurants are a wonderful way not only to feed their countrymen with familiar foods, but to introduce other people to the culture in a way that is sort of less threatening than other kinds of things, perhaps. But I can't think of anything that's been more important to Minnesota than the immigrants that have come here from the very beginning to today, except possibly the founding peoples, the Indian people who lived here to begin with and who are still here.
Just being able to expose your children to the diverse learning and the diverse cultures that they're going to see if they go to the University of Minnesota, if they go to the University of Iowa, if they go to New York or California, wherever they go, this is not going to be new learning for them. And then as they grow older, there's no differences as they move forward. So that's what I hope for all families, is that there's that building of a bridge, not only in our schools with our children, but as adults within our community. We can start to make those headways and start to build that understanding as adults, too, to help our children.
That is the promise of America for each of us. You are the equal of everyone sitting next to you and the equal of everyone who is born in this country.
Don't be afraid of us. Don't be scared of us. Even though we may look like a jungle because we come from the refugee camp, sometimes we may not look like not very sophisticated, but we are very, very nice. We are very respectful to other people. Just don't need to be afraid of us. So we are very peaceful person.
All you need to do is to smile genuinely to someone, and I think you'll be amazed at the warm smile you're going to get in return, and then the barrier is gone or greatly diminished.
Again, remember, I didn't speak English when I came over here.
just stay focused, stay true to yourself, and know that with the right people around you, you can make it. Yep.
Arrival Finding Home is brought to you in part by Donnelly Law Office, providing legal services in matters of immigration law, divorce and family law, and criminal defense since 2002. Donnelly Law Office is a proud sponsor of Arrival Finding Home.
Funding for this program is provided in part by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota.